Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I am your host, Justin, and on today's show, we are going to be learning about accessibility. Super important. It should be super fun. Can't wait to learn more about it and talk about it, dive into it. So let's say hi to our panelists, and then we'll meet our guest, and we'll get into the show. Joining us today, we got Alyssa. Alyssa, how's it going?
Hi, so excited to be here.
Yes, should be good. And our guest today is Kevin. Kevin, how's it going?
Yeah, very good. Enjoying the crazy weather here in Switzerland because last week it was snowing. This week we can walk around in t-shirt.
Oh, wow.
And it's crazy here. But yeah, the crazy thing is like usually when spring comes, I bring all my winter clothes back to the basement and then it starts like again snowing. Then I think, I don't pick them up because it's still snowing. Then after 4 days of snowing, I pick them up again. And then suddenly next day, t-shirt weather. So but yeah, I'm doing good.
How did you decide like how much of that winter clothes you should bring out? Are you like, well, I'll just grab one jacket, or did you like, I'm going to bring it all out just in case?
I'm bringing it all out.
Bring it all.
All out again. I was like, yeah, let's snowboard again.
Nice.
But yeah, now it's summer again. So
all right. Changes everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. Well, hey, do you want to? How about you tell our viewers a bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Kevin. I'm a Google developer expert in Angular and web technologies. And as I said, I'm from Switzerland. And I currently work as a freelancer and as a contractor. And yeah, I'm pretty much motivated by everything that has to do with modern web development, especially Angular, of course. And therefore, I do a lot of blog posts, either for my personal blog or for various publications, such as Angular in Depth, for example. I also maintain a YouTube channel where I talk about Angular mostly. And yeah, I'm the author of various open source projects and do talks and workshops, and glad to be here today to talk about accessibility.
Nice. That is a big list of stuff. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And
it takes time, but as long as you're passionate about it, I think it's worth investment.
That's a great point. Do you find your passion kind of leads you to overload yourself at times? Like I get excited about a lot of stuff and I'm like, I can't wait. I want to dive into this and this. And I'm like, wait, you're taking on too many things. Do you have that same thing or?
Yeah, I got the same thing. And I got it even sometimes that I cannot sleep because I really want to achieve stuff. And then I think about it and I kind of code it in my head. And then the crazy thing is the next day I wake up and I'm too tired because I didn't sleep. So when I should actually do it, I'm too tired because I already thought about it too much.
Yes, I do that all the time, and not just with code, just like anything. Like if I get too excited about it, I'll be like laying in bed planning it, and then wake up exhausted. I don't.
Yeah.
My brain is why.
Yeah. Actually, it should be good to think of like to put it somewhere under your bed and you take it up like the next day or something. That kind of helped me a bit. But
the visualization of like actually setting it down, I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. And so you're talking about Angular videos. Do you do other content, JavaScript, stuff like that?
Yeah, JavaScript, RxJS. So I have some basic JavaScript videos and some RxJS videos. So I have basically like various playlists. I have Angular tips, which are just like short tips, and then Angular tutorial, which are more in-depth and like 15 to 20 minutes or something. And yeah, I also have some videos for my open source library. So one of my open source libraries is SVG2TS. And there I have like a full video tutorial on how to create your own font awesome, or how to say it, for Angular with tree shakeability and everything.
Oh, nice.
Very cool. I'm like finding all of these resources that you're talking about. I'm just going to add them to the tweet chain about this episode so people can have the links, because like there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're getting into accessibility today, right?
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I've prepared some slides and some live coding. Let's see how the live coding part goes. But yeah, I'm excited for it. But before, maybe I want to share some experiences that I had on my path to accessibility, because I think they are worth sharing also for other developers, because I didn't go to accessibility because I was so excited about accessibility. Like, that happened in Angular, there I was excited and I started side projects and so on, but that was not the case for accessibility, not at all. So my journey into accessibility started like, I think 3 years ago, and it started because I quit my job. So I was quitting my job and I decided to go freelancing. And then I had the first contract as a consultant on a big company here in Switzerland. And the idea was initially that I helped them architect microfrontends in Angular. And when I started, they suddenly had a more pressing issue, which was accessibility. And it was so pressing because they were nominated for an award, because they had a web shop that was nominated for some Swiss web award. And they didn't get it in the end because they were not accessible enough. So, and as you can imagine, if you don't get an award, suddenly you have management attention. And management attention means priority, means like super pressing issue. And yeah, so I arrived there and I had to fix or improve accessibility for the web shop. And there are various points, various aspects in this accessibility. And I was basically, because people have various disabilities and various issues then by using non-accessible apps. And I was mainly focused on making it more accessible for visually impaired people. And that's the first thing I want to share, because in this project, and I'm still glad or grateful for that opportunity today, I had the chance to really meet a visually impaired person. And I could see how she was using the web shop and how she was struggling then at some point. And that was so eye-opening to me, because by the time I've already done like various web projects, but mostly for internal business applications. And to be honest, I never cared about accessibility. It was more like I had something in mind, I've heard a bit of it, but it was never like a priority. And to me, it was always like, okay, yeah, to be fair, for internal applications, it's a bit, it's less important. It's still important, but less. But it was always something in my mind, like you have your customer group, and then when you make it accessible, you just extend that group by including other people. And when I saw this person struggling, it made like, it shift. I had a mind shift, because it was really like about not excluding person, not about like including extra persons, really not about excluding persons. And I really felt bad about myself somehow, because I saw this person struggling. And imagine if you are visually impaired, you cannot drive a car, then you kind of rely on public transportation. And then, for example, you want to look up a timetable and you're just stuck because it's not accessible. And it's just easy to assume that everybody can just use it. And so that was for me really something eye-opening to take it more serious. And yeah, then I started to improve the accessibility there. And that's the second point I want to share is it's pretty hard if you have like a huge project and you didn't care about accessibility initially to just come up later and just say like, easy, we will make it accessible. It's pretty hard work already from the beginning, but if you do it afterwards, it's like a huge task. It's basically like saying, yeah, we have this huge project, but we don't write any tests, any integration tests. We do it afterward. And I would say that's even easier, because with tests, you don't have to change the structure of the DOM structure, for example. And that's the second point I really want to share. Like, so the 2 points are like, it's a serious topic and you can really help people by taking it serious, and also take it serious from the beginning. And that's then what led me to basically also why I'm here, because a couple of years later, I had the chance on another client to implement a Angular UI component library, something similar to Angular Material. And yeah, I was thinking, how can we care about accessibility? Because we can put it in our user stories. Yeah, we can say we should make it accessible, but then you have time pressure and suddenly you forget about it, and then it's not so important. Yeah, and it's gone again. And I thought like maybe it would be a cool idea to somehow automate it and treat accessibility somehow similar to unit tests or integration tests. So that if you push a new feature which is not accessible, that then the build fails, for example. And yeah, that's basically something I came up with in this project, and I wrote a blog post about it. Yeah, and that's what I want to show you here today.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's like, I've thought a lot about this, like how did we get here, right? How do we get here as developers, and like why is it not a priority, or how do we achieve that, right? And I think a lot of times that I think about it, we've been writing like anchor tags and buttons and things in a certain way for a long time, and we're like conditioned to just, okay, we got to add this to our DOM, right? Let's do it, boom, boom, boom. And so we're just going through the motions of what we have in our memory of how we tackle that, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's this need to kind of reset that and define a new way that, like, when you think about an anchor tag, when you think about a button, when you think about, some text and an image, like, understand that, like, you need to have a new way that you write it, or I need to adjust my new way to write it so that I'm ensuring that I'm matching this pattern, that's just the way I write these elements going forward, because they will be prepared to be accessible.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's also often overlooked because you are then under time pressure, and like, yeah, you just do it. It's kind of, sometimes it feels like it's an invisible feature, because also to make it right, it requires additional steps of testing. So we will see, like, art can be automated, but not everything. And then, yeah, it just requires a lot of effort, to be honest. It requires a lot of effort to make a application fully accessible. It's like not an easy thing to do. And
that automation testing, like you said, helps. It's almost like, here's our coding patterns, right? And we lint our coding patterns so that we ensure that, like, we're naming these variables the way we want to name them for this project. That automation can help us say, look, we are staying on track with the way that we write that DOM, right? Seems very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. It almost gives that checklist that I've often desired, because I do feel overwhelmed when trying to reach, this very ethereal goal of, yes, I have reached accessible, right? Like, so I think that's also, anything tangible like that is super welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Should I try to share my screen?
Yeah,
let's do it.
See it.
So let's see. Just let me know once you see it.
All right, I see it there. You have slides that you're gonna share?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you now see the slides?
Yeah.
Cool.
There we go.
Yeah, I didn't want to put too much slides there, but like, I think it's still valuable to just go over some base terms or some base things. What is accessibility? I mean, we already kind of covered it, but I thought I've once seen this somewhere in the talk, so it's not my initial idea, but I just reuse it because I think this is the perfect metaphor for accessibility. So you can think of the web as a public library, because it's a place that contains tons of information. And yeah, everybody can access this library. But what if you cannot go up the stairs? Then suddenly you have a problem, like you cannot access that library. And accessibility is basically like building a ramp to that library, so that people who cannot walk can still access the information. So we have 4 major categories of disabilities. One is visually impaired people. As I already said, in this project, I was really meeting visually impaired people. They usually use a screen reader to go and navigate the page. And I think it takes like a lot of skill to correctly use a screen reader. So those people are very, very skilled. Because if I have seen how this person uses the web page, I was like, I could never do that. So yeah, so my hat off to those people. But it's not only like fully blind people. It's also persons like myself, for example, who have trouble with seeing red-green color, for example. So I don't know about you, but I cannot see anything. I hope there's a number in it, because otherwise
there is.
Because I cannot see anything, so nothing, just points. And in fact, even when I code, I use WebStorm, and there is also a checkbox where you can adjust the color for colorblind people. So I'm pretty grateful for that. And here I cannot see anything. So which number do you see?
16.
16.
Yeah. Okay, crazy. Nothing for me. So yeah. Then there are other disabilities. For example, people who cannot hear well. Imagine you have like some video content on your web page, and then you should also put like some transcript so that people can read it, like subtitles. Then there are motor disabilities. So for example, not everybody can easily use a mouse. So some people just can access content with the keyboard. Therefore, it's important that you always make your content accessible via keyboard. And the last thing is cognitive issues. So there are people that may not process information as easy as others. And then it can be hard to process like complicated information. And it's also about web design. For example, you should not put like too many flickering animations or something that can cause problems for certain kind of people. So those are the main categories. And yeah, the goal is, of course, to create a world without barriers. And to achieve that, we have the standard, the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, and they came up with a web content accessibility guideline, which is WCAG. And there are various standards. I think 2.1 is the latest, and 2.2 is in draft, but it should be finalized by September 2022. And these guidelines have some main principles. So every content should be perceivable, means you should not have like hidden elements on your page that are really hard to reach. It should be operable, so everything should be accessible via keyboard and navigatable, and you should be able to interact with the page. It should be understandable, so you should have like a clean page structure that people really can understand the content. And it should be robust, means it should not break, for example, if you access it on a mobile phone or on other browsers. So those are all main principles. Each of those principles then defines some guidelines. So there are 12 guidelines in total and over 60 testable criteria. So as I said, it's not so easy to make like a page fully accessible, but we also define 3 levels of conformance. So there's level A, which is the lowest, then AA, which is a mid-range, and if you want to go like fully accessible, then AAA is the highest conformance. If you're curious about those guidelines, you can find this page, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And I think even, so this is the main standard, but I think each country then somehow, there I'm not 100% sure, but I think each country defines its own rules and based on that. And there you see here, for example, perceivable, those are the main principles, operable, and you see all the guidelines down here, understandable and robust. And yeah, there you can read through if you have the time. And down there you will find more information and criteria. So, as I was saying, take accessibility serious. And to take it serious, I think it's a good habit to integrate it, as said in the introduction, into your daily development workflow. And so, yeah, how can we automate accessibility tests? That was the question I was basically asking myself. To take it more serious, how can we automate it and integrate it into the development workflow? So what I was doing, I was researching, of course, a bit, and then I came across a webpage or an organization which is called A11y, and this A11y is like, that stands for accessibility. I'm not sure why they came up with accessibility and they just shortened it like this, but that's just the way it is.
Justin?
I think I know.
You know? Okay, I'm curious.
The 11 is the 11 characters in the word accessibility that come between the letter A and the letter Y.
Ah, okay. I was not aware of that. That's
it's the same for I18N, right?
So,
yeah.
I never
what
put
is
it
that?
together with I18N. And then now
I18N,
all of a sudden I'm like,
internationalization. It's 18 between the
wait.
I and the N. Yeah.
Yeah, those are just things that I just take as granted, but I never thought why it came like, yeah.
But
okay,
I've heard of this one, but I've heard people call it Pally. I don't know if that's proper, but I've heard people call this Pally.
Okay, let's call it Pally throughout.
Let's call it Pally.
Yeah, let's call it Pally. Okay.
I like this idea of taking the numbers of letters in the middle. I'm gonna use that for my last name. And
I was gonna say we need to do it for
S14R.
we should do it for our names. Really confuse people.
Yeah, and I also thought like, so this also includes the first and the last letter, this 11 then, or so in between A and Y you have only 9 letters. So
so it includes the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could also be.
I've actually never counted it out. So
I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was in between, but you're right. It includes the first and the last. Oh.
Yeah, so for me it would be more logical to have A9Y.
9Y, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, let's stick to Pally. I like that.
Pally.
So the Pally org has like various open source projects. So they have the Pally project itself, some dashboard web service, and the PolyCI. So yeah, let's maybe start with the Pally. And to demonstrate that, I don't know if you can still see my camera, but if you can, then you will maybe see that there in the background, there are tons of like Naruto mangas listed. And I started to watch this Naruto anime series and I didn't like it. And then I started to read the manga and I was like, yeah, I was hooked. So I read like 4,000 pages in 2 weeks or something.
Oh my gosh. So it's good. It's a good read then.
Yeah, it's a good read. Also, like, I kind of like that there are tons of images. So I think like the flow is really cool because I don't like if I read something, I spend too much time on one page. Kind of like the flow of this books. And yeah, therefore I created a small demo application about the series. And this demo application contains 5 routes. So we have a home route that explains what Naruto is, some images, we have some characters from the series. Then we have a rating page. So you can use the slider to rate how you like the series. Of course, it's the best manga ever. And then you can provide some feedback and you have links. So it's available as Netflix series or you can buy it on Amazon. So cool. But this application now contains a couple of accessibility issues. So first, how can we detect that? And to detect that, we can go ahead and just npm install as the Poly as a dev dependency. And you see it also installs on Puppeteer. And once you install that, we can add a script that is called check, or let's call it accessibility. And inside here, we just call the Poly script. And we do like the URL we want to test. So we want to test localhost 4000. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. You're so cool.
Oh, you got in.
Yeah.
Still on the wait list.
So you still have to wait.
Hey, some people aren't loved. It's okay.
Yeah. So we can then call this test script, and we see that we get a welcome message, and then it's running the Poly is running against our localhost 4200 home, and we see that there's an error, and the error we get is image element is missing an eld attribute, and use the eld attribute to specify a short text alternative. So that's pretty cool. We already get like the error. And we also get the image element, so which element is false or not accessible. And if we check our home component, we see this element here. Of course, it doesn't have the ng content attribute. They are added by Angular's emulated shadow DOM. But still, we can quickly see that it's this element. But this is also a super small component. imagine you have like a big page. Then what I kind of like is this selector that gets printed out, because sometimes it's not so easy to find the correct element. And I just copy that selector, open up some dev tools, and then you can just document query selector and paste the selector in.
Oh, the Max Guild said that accessibility.length is equal to 13.
What?
So maybe that in the chat.
Aha, sorry.
Did we spell it wrong? I really need to count this. Justin, I need you to count it for me.
Yeah, but if it's 13, that would support my theory that like only the characters in the middle are
between.
So then you have 11 characters in the middle. That would make sense.
Sorry, cool. I derailed you. Okay, you were saying we can open DevTools and navigate down to the image.
No worries. I was just like, okay. So yeah, you get the image, and then you can also highlight it directly on the page, which is pretty cool, I think. And another cool thing about this error message is we talked about the principles. Like, therefore, I wanted to come up with the presentation. So we see it's principle 1, guideline 1.1, and then 1.1.1. So we can see it's principle 1, which is perceivable, which is 1.1 text alternative, then 1.1 not in text content. And then we can go here, and we also saw that it's age 37. So we can search for age 37, and we will see using alt attribute on image elements. And here we get like a ton of information, why it should be changed, and so on. So that's something cool. So now what we can do is, of course, we can add a alt attribute, which says image of smiling Naruto. And if we rerun our test, we see that no issues found. But our page still looks the same. So what did actually change? And now I was thinking a long time if I want to do this, but let's just do it.
Yay!
So let's just see if this works. So let's just comment out everything besides the image, just to get rid of the noise. So we just also comment out the site navigation and remove that alt attribute again.
Okay.
And if we refresh the page, we only have that image. And now I will turn on a screen reader, and you have to listen closely, because I cannot talk then anymore when the screen reader is going, because he's interrupting me. He's not giving me space to talk. So yeah, just listen what he reads when he enters the Naruto image. So to turn on the screen reader, you can go to System Preferences on Mac. I don't know if there's something similar on Windows. And you can go to VoiceOver and then just enable VoiceOver. And now I will do that, and yeah, he will take over.
VoiceOver on System, Chrome, StreamYard, Narutopedia, website web content busy, web content. What is Naruto? Website web content busy, empty group. What is Naruto? / Naruto-smile.jpg. Website web voiceover off.
So I don't know if you could hear it, but he was just reading the path, like Naruto / basically, he was just reading this path.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we could hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Now let's again add the alt attribute, and let's see what changes. Quickly refresh, and again enable VoiceOver.
VoiceOver on System Preferences, Chrome. What is Naruto? Website web content busy, empty group. What is Naruto? Image of smiling Naruto. Website web content busy, image. Grammarly integration. VoiceOver off.
So you could hear how he reads image of smiling Naruto. And hopefully you could hear it.
Yeah, we could hear it.
And that's like, for us, maybe because it goes very fast, but this is really helpful to people who have who are visually impaired. And I think, yeah, therefore these alt tags are used. So cool. So we tested the first one. Let's quickly go to the next one, which is the characters page. And that one is like a bit less interesting, but still it shows what those automated accessibility tests can do. And it tells you that we have a duplicated ID attribute. So this goes more into robustness, that you should not use duplicated ID attributes. So let's go to the characters page. And we see that we have here Naruto character, and down there, or on top, we have again Naruto character. So let's change one to Naruto, and the other one to Sasuke, because that's the other character. And we fixed another issue. So we will go through all of those routes, but it's only 5, and I think it's valuable because it shows some common accessibility issues. So those were not so super interesting, but the next one I think is more interesting because it's the rating page, and the rating page is just this input slider.
Yeah.
And what's happening here is you still have the labels there on top, not at all, or how you like this manga. And for a visually impaired person, it's unclear what this range input does, because you don't have any text for it. You will just read like, okay, here's a range input, min 1, max 100, value is 50. Okay, good, but what is it actually for? And that's exactly what the accessibility issue tells us. So he says that we should label that correctly. And it even proposes like we can use label element, title, area label, or area labeled by. And those area labels stands for accessible rich internet applications. And we can use this label to provide additional description for this input range. So we would say, how do you like the Naruto series? Choose between 1 and 100 or something. So those descriptions should always be like very specific, but for our case, this is enough. And now the screen reader would know like what this is for, or the visually impaired.
Okay, because I was curious if all of those needed to be met, or if those were just all options of ways to meet that issue.
Yeah,
so
one need to be met. So there are various strategies to meet that. And another one, we will see another one. So we just used the area label here, but we will now see another one, which I think is also something pretty cool to show, because it's a feedback form, and forms are essential part of every application, because it's the only way basically to get data from the user. And let's quickly adjust our test and just call it, that's the feedback route. And now on the feedback route, we get a lot of errors, 5 errors. And let's maybe start with the one on the bottom. And the one on the bottom says that this form field should be labeled in some way. So use the label element either with a for attribute or wrapped around the form field. So we see that we have a label. We have enter your feedback for the text area, and we have enter your name for the input field, but they are not connected. And what we can now do in the feedback component, see that the text area and the label, but they are not wired up correctly. So we can give the text area an ID of feedback. Then on the label, we can use the for attribute, which then says this label is for the feedback. And with that, the screen reader would know if he enters the text area that he should first read the label. And the same we can do for the input field. So we give it an ID, and then we say for name. And now, if we run that, or if we refresh first the application, there's a nice little trick to know if it's correctly labeled, and that's if you click on the label, he will focus the corresponding form control. The same here. So if you click here, it will then jump and focus the form control. And if you run the tests, we still have one issue. And that issue is not only for accessibility, but it's a general issue. Like, how do you want to submit this form? There's no submit button. So what we can do is add a button, and we give it a class button, and we call it submit. So we should have made this accessible. Not yet. So we still have one issue, and that issue is pretty interesting because it kind of is also an issue for me myself. So if I fix this, I will be pretty happy. So
I'm so excited that it found that. I was wondering if it would. What?
Yeah, it does. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's saying the element has insufficient contrast at this conformance level. So it means that our button doesn't have like a good contrast. And I don't know again for you, but for me, it's really hard to read this submit. So I can read it, but it's not so easy to read it.
Mm.
And what we can do is so I have some global styles for that button. So we can change that to white, for example. And now it's much easier to read. And so those things, I think, can also be very helpful if you have internal applications, not just like customer facing, also for internals, where you don't know if there will be people working with like red-green color blindness, or you just don't know. And I think it's very valuable to have that. So then there is one last link, which we have to test, and that will be the last one. So let's test this. And here we say that the image element is the only content of the link. So let's quickly explore that, if that's even true. And the links component, we have links. So we have anchor tags, and the image is really the only content. So usually anchor tags are accessible if they have a text, because then he can read like the text and he knows, so that somebody knows what it's about. But if it's only an image as content, then you cannot you don't know what it is about. So again, we can add some alt text, like go watch Naruto on Netflix or something. And then here again, we would say just buy it on Amazon. And this should probably be more descriptive, but for our demo, I think it's enough. So no issues found. Cool. We successfully improved the application and made it more accessible. But I was talking about using this on a CI, and this is not really CI ready. I mean, for sure, we can go ahead and do like test accessibility, home, test accessibility, links, and so on. But that's, it's not so cool. So what we can do is we can change our test accessibility and use the PolyCI. So initially we saw that the poly org has like multiple. I love calling this poly.
Me too.
So the poly org has multiple projects. So the poly itself. How many times do I have to say poly?
I know. How's in your head? You're thinking about it.
I know.
I would probably dream of poly tonight. But again, we can install the PolyCI as a dev dependency. And so npm install during live presentation, always a good idea. But
Always.
So we then
2 for 2.
So we then change 2 for 2, but it's only small. I initially already pre-warmed the cache, so
there you go. Tricks of the trade.
So we can change the Poly script to PolyCI. So instead of using the Poly, we will use the PolyCI, which under the hood then uses the Poly script. And we don't need anymore like the URL we want to test. But instead, what we can do is in our root folder, the PolyCI will look for a now I have to, I almost wrote like poly with L. I think it's A11y CI. So a .polyci file in your root. And what you can do here, we can export a JSON and we can add some URLs. And then we will say HTTP, like we want to test. No, GitHub Copilot, like 4,200 home. And then we do that for home. I think it was characters, rating, feedback, and the last one was links. Okay. And now it will pick up our configuration and run accessibility tests for all those URLs. And that's now like more toward CI usage, because we can really have an array, and you can still configure it additionally with some, you can even take screenshots. But yeah, this is more towards CI usage. But
does it support like doing a journey? Like, let's say you submitted that feedback form, and then you also wanted to check the results of the page that says, thank you for your submission. Like, if you want to do that whole user journey, are you able to do that through Poly?
I don't think so, but what you can do is, like, for sure, if for example, if you click somewhere and you change the route params or something, and you could also test that route, but it's not like a journey that you can test.
Gotcha.
And yeah, we have those 5 URLs tested now, but we still have like one issue if we want to run that on CI. And the issue is that it's currently running against our localhost 4,200, which is already started. So right, if we kill our application and just run this, then it will not work because there's nothing running here. And yeah, so the idea that I came up with is basically that's basic. I don't know if this graphic is even worth it, but still it's there. So what we will do is we have some CI. So I use for open source projects, I use Travis a lot. And yeah, but it could also be GitLab or whatever you use. And that CI will then just run some scripts. So for example, test accessibility. And then what we need to do is we need to first serve up our application on port 4,200. And the thing is, we cannot just run it in parallel, but we have to wait until something is served, until our application is running on port 4,200, and then we can run the accessibility tests. And to do that, we can install 2 helping tools, which is npm, which is wait on, and npm run all. And again, we install them as dev dependencies. So let's see. 404, cool. So we would then adjust our test accessibility script to use wait on. We say we wait on http://localhost 4,200. So if anything runs on 4,200, we wait, and then we run our accessibility test. Next, we would run create a test. Let's do it like this. I love the Vim, it's so cool. Yeah, and we would do npm run all minus parallel. The minus R basically means race, so it would kill the whole script if one of the internal scripts fails. And what we would do is we would run our start script and then test accessibility. GitHub Copilot. Amazing. So if we now run this, we see that it first runs ngserve, and he generates the browser modules. And once it's successfully served, he then runs the poly, kicks in, and runs the accessibility tests. And this is now perfectly suitable for CI usage. So you can really use that now on CI. Yeah, so that's actually the setup. And what I also want to share is not everything can be automated. So I showed you a lot of things that can be automated, but there's still a lot of things that cannot be automated. For example, focus states. So making something accessible still requires a lot of manual testing, because yeah, you still have to navigate the page and check that the focus is correctly. Yeah, some key points that I experienced throughout my project is your page should always be able to be used with the keyboard and should have a proper elements should have a proper focus state. I think that's less of an issue if you're using, for example, material, which is super accessible, but it's more because I was writing some material or like a UI component library on my own, then you have to take care of those things. You should take care that HTML code is written as semantic as possible. So if you use a site nav, use the site nav tag. For navigation, use the nav tag, and so on. Don't just use a div. Really try to use what HTML gives you. Try to check, especially for forms, because forms is something that people can really get stuck. Because imagine forms are such a basic part to get data or to register yourself in an application, and therefore you should always take care that labels are correctly wired with the input fields. That's what we saw when we were checking the feedback component. If you cannot use like 4 attributes, you can use the area tags, which are accessible rich internet application tags, and they are set on various elements and then can be read by the screen reader. Also, make sure to use color combinations that follow the contrast accessibility guidelines. It was pretty surprising in one of my projects that I did. We set up like this automated accessibility test, and our designers were surprised that their colors were not accessible, which was also funny. And if you want to develop your own UI components, it's generally not just for accessibility. It's a good idea to check Angular Materials CDK. So the CDK is the component development kit. They have some great stuff for developing overlays, but also for accessibility. So if you want to handle focus states and such things, they have great support for that. And another cool thing is native elements have great accessibility. So this again is more important if you're writing UI components. We, for example, had custom radio buttons. So our designers came up with custom radio buttons that look like they have an icon, they have a card behind, and another icon somewhere, and they are really custom. But internally, we still use the native elements, so they will get the focus state and handle everything, but they are visually hidden. But for the screen reader, they are still there, and that's a great approach to improve accessibility.
I want to highlight the semantic one. Like, I think that's really important. We hear a lot about, should we write semantic markup, right? And what's the value of that? I think that this is a key point, is that if we write semantic, we start semantic from the beginning, this accessibility is going to be built around that semantic markup, right? So hitting things like the label element, the structure of the label element along with the form field, like you just mentioned, the native form elements, these sort of things. If we're writing semantic markup, we're going to get some accessibility stuff right out the gate, right? And then we can start thinking about places where we can't be semantic, or we have to alter the semantic, and then we can start looking at area and things like that to supplement and get that type of accessibility where we need it. But we get a lot if we follow this semantic pattern of markup.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think those were all my slides. Like, I will stop sharing now. And sorry if I interrupted or so, because I was looking at the slides and then I could not see your face, and I was not sure if you were talking or not. And then sorry if I was rude and like interrupting, but
no. And I'm just honestly so happy that you were able to come on and share with us, because I don't know if you know this, but you're a really good teacher. Like you have this just logical flow that you go through that's super easy to follow and learn from. So I'm just really grateful for you coming on, Kevin.
Cool, thanks. Happy to hear that, because you never know how stuff ends up with the audience, because once you are deep into the topic, it's kind of hard to take that step back and focus on somebody who's never heard it. Then you suddenly, I had a math teacher in university, and I think if he would put some effort in, he could make that I don't understand 1 times 1 anymore. Like it's yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's that it's not just the content; it's the journey you take us on, right? And lead us through, and then that helps a lot to have that journey that's really guides us to reveal these things. And then the way that you walk through, the different routes and tested these things and built us up from small little things to the more in depth things. Yeah, it was a great journey to follow along with.
Cool. Happy that you liked it. Yeah, and also it was cool for me to see the way I've come, because initially I was also like just developing and didn't care about accessibility. It was like, yeah, okay, it's cool to have, but I'm fine without it. Yeah. So, and that's often what I also saw in projects. So therefore, I'm pretty happy that I had the chance to spread the word on this topic.
Yeah, that's where I think it's like shifting that mindset to going, this is how I build an anchor tag, right? And accessibility is part of that. Like that's just how you do it, rather than looking at like, I just put the A tag in my href or whatever, and I'm done, right? Like start thinking about these things, the image tags, the alt, like just say like the way that I do image tags comes with an alt tag, right? Or alt attribute. Just getting our minds around working as that's just the way we do it when we do these things that we're used to doing. Is how I think we can find a lot of success in moving forward with saying that this is important and we're just going to include it. And like you mentioned earlier, it's like, rather than thinking about, when we do this and we want to add accessibility, just to say accessibility is going to be part of it. It's an expectation that when we build this, it's going to be accessible, right?
Yeah, and I also think this automated test, I think that's what Alyssa said initially, is kind of like, it helps you to learn more about the topic on the fly, because often I don't think you can just learn everything about accessibility and then come to the project. I think it is also cool that you learn it on the fly. Okay, this now needs an alt attribute, and you start reading a bit, and then you learn like while you go, and so you can also keep like the motivation high on your team, because otherwise if you tell them, yeah, now you have to learn everything about accessibility, then yeah, so motivating. It's kind of like a guideline, or how to say.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
That checklist is super valuable, I think, because like I said, it's a big topic. It's big. It's got a lot. But I even watching you and like how you use Pally and like Justin was saying, like, basic and then step it up into automated. Like it was really cool. I'm really, really glad I got to be here for this.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, that tooling, the tooling is key, right? Because, when you talk about it earlier about, we got to fire up a screen reader to test this and things like that. Like, how does our development lifecycle, our process of writing the code, how can we find success in, working through the task that's at hand? And tooling plays a big part in that. And so you can run a script, you automate and running the script that will tell us these things. Then it's, you can stay from a developer standpoint. I can stay in my IDE or my code editor and run that, right? Rather than launching another app to do the test and things like that. So all of that, I think, is keys to success, to helping us be successful at meeting these goals of accessibility.
Yeah, and also what I think was important for us was not just have like accessibility tests in place so that they are automated, but also really let the build fail. Because otherwise you end up in a scenario where you just don't run them for like weeks, and then suddenly everything is red. But if the build really fails and you cannot push your feature, then you have to take care of it immediately. And that was important for us, because we initially had it that we don't have it integrated in the build just locally, because we haven't yet figured out this wait on. So how do you wait? How do you make it like really on CI fully automated? We just had it automated, but only as local runs, like all weeks or all 2 weeks we tried. But then you forget about it, and then yeah. So that was for us, that was key, that it really lets the build fail. So
nice. Very nice. All right, well, we're getting to the top of the hour. Should we do some picks? Alyssa, I forgot to ask you, do you have any picks today?
Oh, yeah. I'll put it in the private chat. This video game, I'm in a D&D group, and my husband and I found this video game separately from it, but it's very D&D-esque, and it's super fantasy and beautiful and unicorns and rainbows, everything I really look for. So it's like you can, what is it called, Justin?
Yeah.
Is it Tiny Tina's Wonderland?
Well, multiple people can play together. is that's not co-op. What is it?
The cross-platform where they can play different consoles, different.
Yeah, some games are solo and some games are like with people. I don't know. There's a word for it. I can't think of it. What were you saying, Kevin?
You stole my pick. That was also on my list because after this podcast, I will go and play it with my friends. So
yes.
I've been playing it for weeks.
Okay, what's your role, Kevin? Which person are you playing?
I'm like the Graveborn.
Oh, okay. I'm the Spore Warden because I had to have the little mushroom. So.
Yeah, that is a mushroom. Yeah, but you can then later in the story, if you reach a certain level, you can.
I know. Okay, so get this. My husband was like, he loves because there's all these different roles you can play as, and he was like, I feel like I need to start over as a different role. So he did that before we hit the point where you can change. It was literally the next day that we found out, like, once you hit a level, you can swap out your characters. Like, he almost rage quit. He was like, why?
And then you can even later reset it and then switch again and try out all kinds of combinations.
I'm so excited. There's just it's a beautiful game, and I highly recommend it for detoxing from a stressful day in the tech industry. It's 10 out of 10, but that's all for me.
Nice. Yeah, I have a Sporeborn. That's my character too. I haven't got too deep into it, but yeah.
But with the mushroom, I had to. I saw the mushroom. I was like, nothing else matters. I need that mushroom in my life.
Your companion. Yeah, I was playing for a while, and then I'm just so hooked on Elden Ring right now. So,
dude, Shorty, I tried it. I gave it a really tried, and I was like, how is he? It's because when people are like, oh, it's like Sky, it's nothing like Skyrim. Okay, let me just put this out there. Skyrim is like, look at the world, and Elden Ring is like, yeah, you kind of have a world, but here's the path. Like you need to go to this person next, and you need to do this thing next. There's not really infinite quests out there waiting for you. And so when I started playing it, I was like, I felt caged in. So if you're going into it, don't expect Skyrim. That's all I got.
Alyssa, you need to set your spirit free. You just need to roam. Like don't be held by the boundaries of the game and what it's telling you to do. Just get on that mount and ride wherever you want to ride.
You want. Okay.
And do your in Skyrim, it's all about climbing up mountains. You're not supposed to climb up and you get on your mount. Do the same thing here. You'll
it'll be fine.
I would definitely not recommend it as like switching to that after a stressful dev day because it has its own stress.
I know. I think that's the other thing is it's very unforgiving. Like if you die, again, I can't think of the word, but when I join in my husband's game, I have to join. I don't know if you've done play with other people, but you're essentially like a little ghost and you have like half powers. And if you die, it's super painful to rejoin them. So I'm like, it just doesn't seem like it was bent or built for like multiple person play. Like, and so that's where I was sad about it. I don't know. I hear so much hype about it though. Did you ever get into it, Kevin? Elden Ring?
No.
Yeah.
I was playing the pre-successor from the Wonderlands, the Borderlands series.
The Borderlands series is one of my favorite. Yeah,
is it worth going back and playing? Like,
you haven't done any of those?
Mm-mm.
No. Oh yeah, you gotta. Yeah, well, especially now that you've played this one, you'll start being familiar with the other ones. Yeah, you should check them out.
Okay, cool.
It's just less rainbow and less dragons.
I told Zach, I don't think any game will top this for me. Like the unicorn queen and the rainbows. Like I was like, this is just so Alyssa. It's not even funny. Like, oh my gosh. And the main bad guy, I can't believe they got that voice actor. I don't know if you guys know his name. I can't think of it. But he was in the really funny comedy with the banana stand. It's not coming to me. Arrested Development. He was a main character in Arrested Development. And they got him for the bad guy, and it just makes the script. Like, I love listening to the voice actors during the commentary. Oh, so good.
It's awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, Kevin, that was your pick. Did you have another one, or were you just going to ride with that pick? That's a great pick.
And I have another one. I just bought but it's more for home office environment. I just bought those Philips Hue, which are those small lights, and I just put them behind the screen, and that makes like a huge difference in the evening. Like you can customize the scene, which is pretty cool. So then you can really if you feel more like Northern Lights atmosphere, you can put that on, and that's cool. But yeah, my main pick was Tiny Tina's Wonderland, but that was stolen from me.
All right. Well, it's a good pick. It can be picked twice for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's pick it twice.
Awesome. Well, hey, Kevin, like Alyssa said, we super appreciate you taking the time, coming on, teaching us about accessibility and going through all this stuff. Really, really enjoyed it, and I'm really, really thankful for you sharing it with us. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
For sure. All right. That's a wrap, everyone. Have a good one. Catch you next time.
Bye.